Instead of diving into one specific idea, today I want to talk about something a bit more broad, more opinionated.
Is that acceptable to you?
So here are some of the most underrated horror movie moments, the ones that are overshadowed by other scenes in their respective films, at least in my opinion. First off, pretty much everyone loves Alien. Its iconic depiction of cosmic sci-fi horror has stood the test of time, creating one of the genre's most influential aesthetics. Of course, people often point to its more bombastic or explicitly frightening moments, like the chestburster scene or Dallas' claustrophobic escapades through the ship's tunnels of ventilation, and for good reason. They're great. But today, I want to bring attention to a scene that, to me, epitomizes cosmic horror, creating disturbing implications that truly shake me to the core. In the director's cut for the film, as she attempts to evacuate the Nostromo, Ripley encounters the two crewmates she had presumed dead. With a flamethrower in her hand, she bears witness to Dallas and Brett undergoing the process of turning into eggs. The idea of slowly molting into an entirely new organism, losing my sense of self, my ability to move, to think, or perhaps maintaining it while trapped in a stationary position, deeply unsettles me. What happens to my conscience? You're just sitting there, something else. The film doesn't emphasize this moment much, but it sure left an impact on me once I started to consider its deeper implications. These men weren't simply dying, they were transforming, becoming something inhuman, their senses, their desires, their minds, all evolving into this immobile creature, completely devoid of what made them what they once were. Despite being one of the main horror franchises of the 1980s, Hellraiser doesn't get talked about nearly as much as its contemporaries. Halloween, Friday the 13th, and A Nightmare on Elm Street tend to overshadow it, leaving it in that next tier with Child's Play and The Evil Dead. Even its primary antagonist, Pinhead, whose voice and design have become iconic in their own right, constantly ends up as an afterthought when talking about the biggest horror movie villains. But despite this unfortunate reality, Hellraiser still has some truly terrifying and memorable scenes, whether it's the arrival of the Cenobites, or Frank's death, or all the weird body horror stuff. Today though, I want to highlight a short burst of movement, a few seconds of shock. You see, in establishing the main conflict of the film, the real villain, Frank, comes back to life, but without his healthy human form, and it's his reveal here that truly disturbs me. Julia walks into the attic, only to be grabbed by a mysterious, decrepit hand. She then screams, and we see Frank's fleshy corpse moving with this unnatural, high-paced crawl. It's so shocking and nasty. The darkness and shadows conceal the details of his body, which only makes him more unsettling. The way he moves is so ghoulish and desperate, so intense, like the crawlers in Call of Duty Zombies. I hate it. While many consider this the scariest film they've ever seen, for nearly all of its runtime, Cure didn't have much of an effect on me, at least not from a horror perspective. In fact, throughout most of the film, I'm not sure I'd even say it belongs in the genre, instead feeling more like a dark psychological thriller. I think it's an amazing movie, of course, but it doesn't seem that concerned with horror, with making the audience feel afraid or disturbed. It's far more interested in moving through the mystery and developing the characters than with evoking a sense of dread in the audience. At least, that's how it felt for me. However, towards the end of the film, things change. With about 20 minutes left, Kiyoshi Kurosawa digs deep into his bag of tricks and crafts his unmistakable sense of horror, doing it so effortlessly that the film manages to transition from its more dreary tone to an outright creepy one. He uses the very tactics that almost never fail to make my skin crawl, incorporating imagery that's become synonymous with Japanese horror. Attempting to learn more about a mysterious serial killer, a detective watches a very old video recording, one with poor quality and tons of film grain, making it even creepier by slowing it down, giving it this ghostly, unnatural quality. And then a bit later, the film invokes some horror in plain sight, having a man simply stand in the window as low tones drone in the background, creating this absolutely disturbing ambiguity, this vague uncertainty of the man's intentions. Like, why is he just standing there? And you can barely see him, like he's always there but rarely noticed. And then there's the creepy ass audio recording at the end, which speaks in what sounds like nonsense, but ends up capturing the essence of eeriness. It feels sinister, but without form, like it exists in the air. Man, this movie has the perfect atmosphere. Speaking of Kiyoshi Kurosawa, I also wanted to talk about his most notorious unambiguous horror movie, Pulse. Now, I made a video on it a while back, so I won't get too deep into it here, but the film has many moments that I can choose from. Much has already been said about its most well-known scene, the one with the creepy ghost gliding towards the camera, but the film also has a collection of other elements that people tend to overlook. If you allow it to consume you, Pulse manages to maintain and then establish this constant sense of dread and eeriness throughout nearly all of its runtime. The film's use of voiceovers and shadows give it such a disturbing feeling, like a person's crawling under your skin, like something's hiding in your room, making every shadow feel like a threat. The way figures hide in plain sight, blending in with the environment as if they are one and the same, works every time. The slow pace of the film, its use of long takes instead of quick cuts, help build that unique, unforgettable atmosphere that's become iconic in Japanese horror. Today though, I just want to quickly mention the same scene that I've talked about in depth, but couldn't keep away from this video. Pulse doesn't just have one extended ghost sequence, it has two, but the second hasn't gotten the love it deserves, usually overshadowed by the first, yet it makes use of the same tools to present a truly terrifying collection of shots. If you think it's simply a scary scene, you're underrating it. It's one of the scariest of all time. The found footage genre has had a lot of hits and a lot of misses, but one film people often present to highlight this style of horror is Grave Encounters. Centering on a sort of parody of many real-life ghost hunter shows, Grave Encounters follows a group exploring supposedly supernatural locations, but instead of yet another hoax, they finally discover the real thing. And as the situation becomes more and more dangerous, people disappearing, facing off against invisible enemies, the crew can do little more than run around the abandoned hospital they become trapped inside. Grave Encounters takes some interesting turns though, making the supernatural elements more effective than in most other movies, manipulating the passage of space and time within the hospital. The sun doesn't appear to exist, the hospital staying dark forever. Directions no longer move in straight lines, they seem to twist and turn in whatever direction to keep the group trapped inside. And it's these kinds of manipulations of reality that make this next moment so memorable for me. At some point, the group discovers what seems like a tub full of blood, but someone emerges from within and pulls one of the crew members inside. Of course, the remaining crew members try to get him out by flipping the tub, and though all of the blood rushes out, the man who fell inside doesn't. He simply disappears, never seen again. The implications of this moment terrify me more than what we see directly, raising questions that the film never answers. Where did he go? What took him? Sometimes what we don't know is even more frightening than what we do. Taking a bit of a different direction from the rest of the franchise, Evil Dead Rise had to find a way to get fans of the previous installments to buy into this new film, while still establishing its own story, characters, and most importantly, scares. And if you're asking me, it certainly succeeded. It created a claustrophobic atmosphere and maintained it throughout the entire film, inundating it with all of the horror elements that the franchise prides itself on, things like its use of gore and odd shot compositions, leaving the film feeling both enjoyable and uncomfortable. But if there's one thing I love in horror, it's creepy old audio recordings, and if there's another thing I love, it's a character telling a creepy story, and Evil Dead Rise does both of those at the same time. You see, after battling the Deadites for a little while, the remaining survivors try to learn how to kill them, so Beth listens to a recording. But not just any recording, one on vinyl, an actual record, giving it a much lower, grainier quality of sound and making it creepier. She listens as a priest describes his own encounter with these undead monsters, warning them about his repeated failed attempts to kill them, which only makes their situation feel even more hopeless. Despite his desperate monologue, he doesn't provide any answers. He just pushes them further into a pit of pain and anguish. It's great. But those are a few horror movie moments that I think people don't appreciate enough. Let me know of any others that you think belong here too. Thanks for watching.